Coming up today, it's episode 116 of In the Front Row. We sit down with Rowdy Gaines, Olympic gold medalist as a swimmer and now a broadcaster for the Olympics since 1992. He talks about his career and also talks about the impact Michael Phelps and Kitty Ledecky has had on the sport. Plus, we hear about his run-in with Snoop Dogg in Paris. All that straight ahead, episode 116 of In the Front Row featuring Rowdy Gaines.
It's a pleasure to have you join us. We've been trying to get you here for a while. Hurricanes have kind of interfered with that a little bit, but pleased to have you with us to share your story. And we got to start with the name. You know, Rowdy, your name is Ambrose Gaines the Fourth. So give us the backstory on Rowdy and where that comes into play.
Oh, that's good, Mike, that you know that my full name is Ambrose Gaines the Fourth. I don't have a middle name. Rowdy is just a nickname that I was born with. Born in 1959. You can guess how old I am. And but there was a popular television series, you're way too young to remember, but TV series called Rawhide. And Clint Eastwood played a character called Rowdy Yates. And my dad thought it was kind of a cute nickname. Didn't think it would stick 66 years later, but here I am.
How has that nickname helped you in your career, both as a swimmer and now as a broadcaster?
Well, I think it hurt me in school because, you know, I was a wimp in school anyway. And so people would, you know, oh, you're not so rowdy, you know, and I'd get beat up or something. And of course, Ambrose was just as hard to live with. But, you know, it's my name now. Everybody knows me by that. You know, I lived with it as a swimmer, which was great. And I thought about changing my name many, many years ago. This was probably back in high school to Ambrose, like just be Ambrose and eliminate Rowdy. But my friends wouldn't let me back in high school. My friends have not let me since. So my grandparents were the only ones that used to call me Ambrose. My wife calls me Ambrose every once in a while, but just close friends and family do.
There you go. Yeah, nicknames sometimes it's not what you want. It's just becomes who you are. And
it is.
And certainly for you, again, what you became was an outstanding and a gold medal swimmer. Take us through the start of how you got into swimming. I think your parents were water skiers, so obviously you were around the sport, born and raised in Florida as well. How much did that play into you becoming a swimmer?
Yeah, I you know, it's funny, Mike, because I grew up around water my whole life. I'm a third generation Floridian. We lived on the same lake, as you said, Cypress Gardens was on. My parents would take the boat across the lake and, you know, water ski for a living when I was younger. And so it just was part of my DNA. But I didn't start swimming competitively really until high school. I was a junior in high school. I was in 11th grade when I went out for my high school swim team. And it just kind of clicked, you know. I had tried out for 5 other sports, and I kept getting cut in all of them. And swimming was just next in line. In fact, it's funny because I had decided I was going to go to the library the day I tried out for the swim team. Back then, that's what you did. You went to the library and check a book out on track and field to see what kind of events I could do in track and field, because I just knew I was going to get cut in swimming. The football coach was also the swim coach, so he'd already cut me once, and but he didn't cut me. So I survived swimming and you know, ended up falling in love with it.
Yeah, 17, you know, that's a late age to start a sport. So what was it? Why did you excel in swimming?
People ask me that all the time, Mike. And I guess my patent answer, which is the absolute truth of an answer, is I love swimming. I loved it as a kid. I learned how to swim before I learned how to walk. You know, growing up in Florida, that's what you do every day. You water ski and swim all day long, every day. And so the water was really part of the fabric of who I was. And the competition part really was just sort of icing on the cake. Yeah, I had to learn how to do things. I showed up at practice the first day in jean cutoffs and no goggles, swam with my head out of the water like an 8-year-old. But, you know, I became obsessed. I literally did everything I could do that was morally and legally right to be able to be a better swimmer. Checking books out at the library, sneaking into motels to get extra practices in, I wrote 50 colleges at the time to ask them what I needed to do to earn a scholarship. I got two letters back from coaches because, nobody was, I'd started my junior year, so I stunk, I was terrible. So nobody wrote me back except two in Western Kentucky and Auburn. And so, I think a lot of it was I became dedicated to the craft.
Yeah. Again, growing up in Florida, were you hoping that somebody from within the state came calling and gave you one of those offers?
Absolutely, man. I wanted to go to Florida. I either wanted to go to Florida or Tennessee. My father has roots in Tennessee, and I loved the Volunteers as a kid, but I really wanted to go to Florida. But they didn't. They never recruited me, man. I never got a letter. I went up there on a recruiting trip by myself, and really didn't enjoy myself. And Auburn had been recruiting me my whole senior year, and the coach flew down, Eddie Reese, who's now a legendary coach in the sport, maybe the greatest college coach in history, recruited me and flew down and watched me swim my senior year at my state meet, which was in May, offered me a scholarship. I flew back to Auburn. I just fell in love with the whole process, and I fell in love with Auburn because it's a small town. I'm from a small town, Mike, and I was kind of used to that kind of atmosphere at Auburn too.
You said you went to the library. You were reading about swimming. Did you have a swimmer at the time that you looked up to that you tried to emulate as well?
Sure. I remember literally checking out the books 50 Meter Jungle by Mark Spitz. It was actually done by his coach, Sherm Chavor, but it was about Mark Spitz, who was before my time. He was in the 72 Olympics. And another, Olympian that I read so much about and ended up idolizing, Don Scholander, who was, an Olympic gold medalist in the 64 games. His book was called Deep Water. So I checked out those books. Doc Councilman, who's sort of the Bear Bryant of college swimming, checked out his book. Like I said, I just started becoming obsessed with everything, the history of the sport, the technical part of it, everything I could do to try to get a little better each day. It was a slow process, man. I was hanging by the skin of my teeth there that first 2 or 3 weeks of practice, and the coach felt sorry for me as he later on told me, because he had already cut me once, so kind of let me hang in there. But once I started getting in the groove, I started to really feel my oats, so to speak.
Yeah, at Auburn, 5-time NCAA champion, SEC Athlete of the Year in 1981. So what helped you? Why did you become and excel? And was it, the drive of not getting recruited by a Florida that helped you maybe have that chip on your shoulder a little bit as well?
No, I don't think so, Mike. I never really had that because I didn't blame him. I wasn't any good, so I wasn't offended at all. I kind of understood it, but it was really the belief in the two coaches that I swam under. Eddie Reese, my freshman year, who went on to Texas, and then Richard Quick, who came in after him, and was really kind of my coach the rest of my journey to the Olympic Games. That they were, you have that mentor in your life, or mentors, and Richard was somebody that, I won 3 gold medals. I gave one to my mom, one to my dad, and one to my coach before I met my wife. And because I couldn't have done it without them, but specifically Richard, and the way he prepared me on a daily basis, and the love he showed me, not only in the pool, but out of the pool too, which was getting back to your specific question. It really was Richard that helped me in that journey. He passed away about 10 years ago, but he's still in my heart every day.
10 world records, mostly 100, 200. What was it about those strokes, that discipline that you gravitated to?
Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I first started. Like I said, I didn't know how to do a flip turn, dude. I didn't know how to do any. I still don't know how to do breaststroke. My wife kicks my butt in the water in breaststroke. I just knew that when I was chasing alligators in Lake Eloise and baby gators, and playing tag and hide and seek under the docks. I swam freestyle like we all do. And, in that type of situation, the crawl, water polo type swimming. And so it just kind of came natural because that's what I did as a kid, so those two strokes of backstroke and freestyle was pretty good. And I eventually learned that backstroke I wasn't any good at. And freestyle just stuck with me. And those distances, the 100 and 200, the sprints, the 50, I was a speedster. And I could swim all disciplines of the freestyle, but that sweet spot of the 100 and 200 was where it was at.
So you go from going to the library once again, reading about it. At what point do the Olympics, go in your mind and think, "Oh, I'm good enough that this could be a possibility"?
Well, it's a good question. I will say, quite honestly, where I really started thinking about it was 2.5. I started in February of '76. I broke my first world record in August of 1978. So about 2.5 years later, and it was on two different relays. It wasn't individually, but just a taste of that. I made the world championship team that summer. I didn't even have a passport, so I never even thought about making it, but I made the nationals, and it was a qualifying trip for the worlds. And here I go, I qualify for it. And then once I get to the worlds, I see what that stage is like. And that's where I really started dreaming about, like, oh, wow, when the Olympics again? Oh, 1980? I'd like to try to do that, I was still very naive and very raw, but, again, my coach came to me, and Eddie did my freshman year, but I never thought about it. But, after my freshman year, Richard came in and said, you've got a chance here. You can make the Olympics. So that's when I started really believing it.
Well, you talk about 1980. Unfortunately, it was the boycott and the Moscow Games. I've read that, you thought you had a chance maybe at 3-4 medals, whatever the case might be. What's that like? At that time, amateur sports, the Olympics, every 4 years, that's what you're gearing up for. And then all of a sudden that's gone.
Yeah. Excuse me. It was really tough, Mike, because you have to remember, in our sport, the Olympics is the pinnacle of success, right? We don't have a World Series or Super Bowl where you miss it. If my beloved Chicago Cubs miss World Series one year, I can always hope that the next year they'll try to make it back again. So the Olympics is every 4 years. And so it made it very, very difficult, very challenging. There were many days I wanted to quit after that happened. But I had my senior year in 1981, and, Richard made an example of me trying to be a leader for that team. And then I retired after 1981 because there was no money in swimming in 1981. In fact, you weren't allowed to take money, even after college. It was purely an amateur sport. But I think 1980 hurt the most because I think it was the wrong decision. And hindsight's a beautiful thing, but if we could look back and say the decision worked, then I think I can look back, and really have supported it. The problem is it didn't work. It was supposed to accomplish two things, Mike. One, the Russians needed to leave Afghanistan, a country that they had invaded, or two, to move the Olympics out of Moscow, Soviet Union. Neither one of those happened. In fact, the Soviets loved it because they just won more medals and promoted that. So it didn't work. And there were 363 athletes that were on that 1980 team that didn't have 76 and didn't have 84. So that was their only Olympics. So for me, those are the real, if you want to say heroes that came out of that time, were the ones that just made the 80 team. I had 1984.
Yeah. So did you know at that time that 84 was still going to be a possibility for you?
No way. I retired after 1981. I mean, the greatest swimmers in history up to that point were never older than 22. I mean, Mark Spitz was 21. John Neighbor was 21. I mean, you just didn't stick around after college. And after about 6 months, I just, I realized that I didn't want to look in the mirror the rest of my life and say, what if, to be able to hear the national anthem or the Olympic theme song or see the rings. I mean, all those things my rest of my life, it's going to be hard to see that and not say at least to go for it, win, lose, or draw, like I knew the odds were pretty tough, but I figured it was 3 years out of my life. And I hope to live to my 80s or 90s. I figured I got another 70 years or so left. I need to go for it.
Well, that said, you're 25 years old at that time. So how different did it make, training and competing, with those years, on your body, especially in a sport like swimming, where it just takes a toll on you, I would think.
It does. It does. I mean, we don't get beat up like football and boxing and stuff, but it does. I mean, think about it. I was swimming 8 to 10 miles every day, 6 days a week. Year round. There's no off season. You get a week off in the spring and about a week off in the fall. Otherwise, it's year round, and so it can certainly beat you up, chew you up, and spit you out. My daily routine, Mike. So I graduated from college in 1982. So I moved to Austin, Texas, because my coach Richard had moved down there to take a job down there with Eddie. And so it was great. I had the best of both worlds. And my daily routine would be morning practice, sleep all day, afternoon practice, and then I'd have the 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. shift at the Hyatt Regency in Austin, Texas. That was sort of a daily routine for me for about 2.5 years. But the key word there is routine. I think as an athlete and anybody that wants to excel in something, I think you just have to develop a routine for yourself. I hate being out of my routine. My wife will tell you, I like to go to bed early. And, I don't necessarily get up early, but I like to go to bed early and kind of stick to that routine as much as possible. So it wasn't as bad as it sounds.
Well, the routine worked. 3 gold medals, 100-meter freestyle, a couple of relays. You're the anchor. So, again, you obviously a big spot for you. And you win those, as you said. You didn't want to have that regret of not hearing the anthem. What was it like in L.A., home soil, to hear that anthem and be on the top of the podium 3 times?
Well, it's so hard to describe, Mike. I mean, because to this day, I've always had a very difficult time describing my feelings when I was up on that podium and singing the national anthem, because part of its time has passed, 41 years, and the memories are starting to fade a little bit, but also because I was just in a twilight zone moment for me. It was just, I just couldn't believe it. First of all, it was in our home country, right? So I got to do it in LA. Think about having the national championship in college football in your home stadium, or the Super Bowl in your home stadium. And that's what it was like for us. And so to be able to do it in LA, there were about 20,000 people in the stands. The most people I ever swam in front of was 20, so the energy and the electricity that you felt made it all the more kind of dreamy. And I swam the perfect race because, to be honest with you, I was not the best swimmer in 1984. We could have swam that race 10 times, man, and I would have finished 4th or 5th, 9 of them. I was the best swimmer in 1980. My times in 80 would have won 5 gold medals, but in 1984, I was barely hanging on. But I swam that perfect race. Again, because of my coach. It's a long story. I won't bore you with all the details, but specifically that race was because of my coach and how he prepared me.
We had Amy Van Dyken on recently, and
cool,
winning gold medals in the Atlanta in '96. She talked about being able to hear and feel the crowd from under the water. Was it like that in LA in 1984?
Absolutely, no question about it. No different. Again, you have to remember, we're swimmers, we we don't have that real true electric moment except for the Olympic Games. Now, we will say the World Championships, back then Pan American Games, certainly the NCAA Championships, they're all very important, but there's nothing like the Olympics, you know. And to be able to be out there and have that many people, it was truly one of the most amazing moments, certainly of my professional career, if you can call that a profession, and one of the great times in my life, because I got out of the water and who did I see first? My coach, you know, and it seemed like about 10 minutes that we hugged, but it was truly a great moment. And then I got to spend time with my family a little bit after it was all done and have them out there. So it really was, it was a magical time, and it's going to be so exciting to have it back there in 2028.
Yeah, you're going to be on the call, and it seems like, you know, again, you made that pretty smooth transition. Was it smooth? I mean, 25 years old, your swimming career is done. Was there a point when you're thinking, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. And I think that's where our sport needs to do a much better job. All the Olympic sports, but specifically the ones that are non-revenue type sports. We need to do a better job in helping our athletes post-career, because you got to remember, we're like this, man. We have this tunnel vision. And most swimmers don't make any money even today. I didn't make money, obviously, but an average swimmer today makes about 25, 30 grand a year. So you're not getting rich swimming. Yes, there are swimmers that make a lot of money. You know, Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, the Caleb Dressels of the world, and they all made money. Absolutely. But for the most part, it's not, you're not earning a living, but you're still sacrificing so much to be able to represent your country and to be able to, you know, win a gold medal or even make the Olympic team. But when it's all said and done, we tend to forget about these kids, you know. And that's what happened to me. I was done. I was like, I went to a deep funk, man. The depression was real. Now, we didn't have anything for it. Now we have a lot more platforms to help these athletes on their mental health, but we didn't have that back then. But I think we need to do a better job in helping these kids find what life is like outside the pool, because it's a lot more important. I mean, I was finished at 25. Most kids in my sport are done by at least the age of 30, if not much more before that. So what are you going to, when you're done, it's many of them, they don't have direction in their life. So it needs to be better for sure.
Yeah. And again, this is the early 80s. So I'm sure you weren't talking about your mental state or depression. How did you deal with it? And again, come out to again have this career broadcasting wise that you've been able to have all these years?
Well, the broadcasting kind of came on a lark, sort of like swimming. I started, kind of late, and I was invited to do the Battle of the Corporate Stars with a fledgling network called ESPN. Nobody had ever heard of them. And they asked me to do the swimming part of this multi-sport thing for different corporations. And it just kind of led from one thing to another. And that happened in like 1985, late 85. So for about a year, the first 3 or 4 months is okay, Mike. So because you're traveling, you're doing all that post-Olympic stuff. But then after the holidays, everything just shuts down, And so I went through some tough times. I mean, nobody's feeling sorry for me, of course, I just won 3 gold medals. So, but you do have a loss of direction. And, but I met my wife about a year later and built a great relationship with her and moved to Las Vegas and was a swim coach there for a while. So I was one of the lucky ones, because I let swimming help me in my post life. I counted on the things that swimming taught me to help me in the real world. And I think if you can do that, if you can apply the same principles, I think it helps a lot. And it did me.
So you win gold medals in 84, 96, the first Olympics that you got to broadcast, you and Dan Hicks, who've been together a long time during your career. What was that first year, that first Olympics as an announcer in 96? And again, back, on your home soil, being in Atlanta.
It was incredible. I never dreamed that I'd even do one Olympics, much less 9 of them. This LA will be my 10th and my 9th with Dan Hicks. I actually did the triple cast in 92 for NBC, which was sort of the cable side, but burst over the air. Yeah, it was 96 with Dan. And we'll be doing our 9th together. And I love him like a brother. He has helped me so much during my career as a friend and also obviously in the booth. And I just love calling the Olympics because I have the best seat in the house, man. Literally, I've got like 3 different screens in front of me. I got instant replays. I can draw on it. It's like, it's like a dream job. It really is. I'll never tell NBC that I would do it for free, but I think I probably would because it's so much fun. It's hard work. You're at the pool 18, 20 hours a day, but for 9 straight days, but it's amazing. It's really fun. You go through the same thing, when you do a broadcast or something, you have this bunker-like mentality with your fellow teammates. And that's what it's like in a broadcast booth. It's not just me and Dan. At the Olympics, there's probably 100, 150 people that work on the Olympic Games in just swimming. So it's very much a team effort.
Well, you two, again, do a great job, I think, bringing the energy and certainly has to help sell the sport as well. Where does that energy come from with you guys? Like you said, long days, but you can't tell that when you watch one of your broadcasts.
Well, thank you. I mean, if you saw her on cameras, you'd be able to definitely tell that there'd been long days because we looked like death warmed over. But it goes back to what I was telling you earlier, Mike. I just love swimming, and I want to try to relate what these kids go through on a daily basis to the person that doesn't know anything about swimming. Sometimes I get criticized. Well, I'm sure I get criticized a lot by the swimming world about how I call races, my knowledge and stuff like that. I just don't care. My job is to entertain and bring the love of the sport that I have to you. When you watch, that's all I care about is you. I don't care about Joe Schmo, who was a swim coach for the last 19 years, because they're going to watch regardless. But I want you to be able to watch the Olympics every day. And I want to bring those stories of those kids to you. An example, Annie Laser, who lost I think it was her father, right before the Olympic trials in Tokyo, and to have her teammate and her big rival go to the funeral with her. I mean, these are the kind of stories that I like sharing with the person watching at home and just say, wow, they're really swimming 10 miles a day? You're kidding. So I think Dan especially does a wonderful job, and I try to chip in when I can.
Yeah, sports, it's so much numbers and everything else. To humanize them is certainly important in a broadcast to really bring people in. And for you, front row seat for, Michael Phelps and his entire career. What was that like to see him and to see him develop? Could you see this coming early on?
No. I'd be lying if I said yes. Now, in 2000, I knew he was going to be great because he made the team when he was 14 years old, so I knew he had greatness in his destiny, but he only made it in one event. He only swam one event, Now he's 14, 15 years old, but I didn't think he would have the versatility that he ended up having. I knew he was going to be a great swimmer, but not the greatest. Not 28 Olympic medals, 23 of them gold. Come on. I don't think anybody could have predicted that. But as time went on, I knew this guy. In fact, I just texted him about 20 minutes before we went on. I knew he was going to be somebody that transformed our sport. About 2003 was I knew that this guy was going to transcend our sport, And there hasn't, Mark Spitz, Michael, maybe Katie Ledecky, but they're about the only 3 swimmers in history that have, what I mean by transcending is most people, if you walk up on the street and ask who Michael Phelps is, they're going to know, and that's not easy to do for our sport. I mean, they can do the Michael Jordans and the LeBron James, and they're probably 10 or 15 basketball players and people, would know. But there's not many swimmers like that. And we owe Michael a tremendous amount of gratitude for what he brought to the sport and how he put our sport on the map.
Yeah, you mentioned Katie Ledecky. Is she kind of the female counterpart to
Mm-hmm.
Phelps and what she's been able to do as well?
Greatest female swimmer in history. And it's not even close. And for me to be able to have the great honor to be able to call every single one of their races at the Olympics and in World Championships, any major competition has truly been, I have to pinch myself sometimes because, swimming goes back to the very first Olympics, Mike, 1896. It's one of only 5 sports that have been in every single Olympics. And to have the 2 greatest in history during these last 20, 25 years of an era, and I got the call. It's just like, come on, man. I'm very blessed. The Lord has blessed me in many ways, no doubt about it.
Is it equally as exciting as, again, winning a gold, calling a gold, and being part of this era, as you say?
I don't know if I'd go that far now. Winning was, I don't know. I think I beat that. And what I won was the individual, which was great because it was a sense of pride for the work that I had done. But I also, as you said, won 2 on relays, and I got to share that with my brothers. So those 3 were so meaningful in so many ways. But calling them, it's just a different type of joy. It's just different. It's especially with Michael and Katie, because they've meant so much to our sport. They bring me a lot of joy, but it's just different. I have joy for them, for sure.
As you said, the Olympics back in LA in 2028. Did I see that this is going to be your last one in the broadcast booth? Is that been something you've said before?
I have. I think it will be. I just want to make sure I have my wits about me, Mike. I'll be 69, man. Jeez. I'll be 69 in 2028. And I just want to make sure that I make sense. I'm already feeling like I don't make sense. And of course, I haven't made sense in 30 years of doing broadcasting. So, but I do want to, I want to make sure that I am able to do the job that NBC first hired me to do 30 years ago, right? And I want to continue to show that passion. And if I do and everything goes great in LA, who knows? But it would be kind of a cool way to go out with, full circle kind of moment. So that is intriguing in a way, but I love doing it. And I don't think I'll go, if I don't call the Olympics, I love doing the NCAA championships every year. I've done the college championships now for about 35 years in a row and love doing that. So I hope to continue that. I don't think I'll just fade into the sunset totally. And I'll be in Brisbane in 2032, one way or the other.
I just said full circle, LA 84, now 28. Are you going to be involved with things beyond the broadcast? Have you talked to anybody about, some kind of involvement, whether it be with the torch? Heck, Snoop Dogg's in everything. At least we can be in something, right?
Well, yeah, it's funny because Janet Evans is kind of, she's a very dear friend, and she basically is running LA, she's one of the top, second in command, basically, at the LA 28 games. And she was a great Olympic swimmer, multiple gold medalist, one of the greatest. And I've talked to her about it. I've offered my help, but no, I haven't been approached about doing anything. There's no way I'm carrying the torch in. If it was me and I'm choosing Michael Phelps. That's who I'm choosing. Serena Williams would be a good choice. There are many that would be good choices, but we'll have to wait and see. I have no idea. If I did, I'd tell you, but I have no idea. They're not going to have any idea until probably 2 or 3 days out anyway.
Did you have any Snoop Dogg experiences in Paris?
Yeah.
Again, he was everywhere.
Absolutely, I did. Well, the first experience, it's a funny story. So Snoop was in LA, right? And I did this press thing with him, and he was so nice. I mean, completely different from what I imagined, right? Not that I imagined he would be mean or rude or anything. I didn't know if I could relate to him, but he was so cool and he was so interested in swimming, Mike. He kept saying, "Oh, I think making a record is sort of like what you do. You spend all this time for this one moment." And he just loved it. He came to the swimming a couple nights with us, sat in the booth with Dan and I. He's just one of the nicest men I've ever met, really, truly, and truly interested in the Olympics. He was a huge fan, and he was very nice to me. And I'm it's not like we text back and forth. I'm not friends with him, but he was very nice to me, both the first time I met him and in Paris.
Again, you do so many things. I know one of the things that you've done in the past, maybe you still do, step into swim, and you're trying to help kids. I'd seen something you talking about how drowning is just prevalent about around kids. What are you trying to do? What does Step into Swim do to kind of combat that and help that?
Drowning is an epidemic in our country, Mike. It is the number one cause of death in children ages 1 to 4. It's number 2 in that 5 to 14 age group. And I think for us at Step Into Swim, which is a philanthropic initiative of the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance, it's a foundation. We raise money primarily through our membership, which is the pool and hot tub industry. And we take that money, and you're showing it right there. We give that money away. 100% of that money that we raise goes right out the door to lesson providers around the country to teach children that would never have the financial means. It's expensive to take swim lessons. And what we want to do is give free or reduced cost swim lessons to children. Because it breaks my heart, man, when I read a child drowning. I get a Google alert every time a child drowns, and I get 4 or 5 a day. And it's heartbreaking because in most cases it was so unnecessary. We found the cure to drowning. The cure literally is swim lessons. When a child takes swimming lessons, it reduces that risk of drowning by 90%. So that's the cure. I try to tell parents, put your kids in swim lessons. I beg parents, and never, ever take your eye off them when you're in or around water, because 80% of drownings happen in front of an adult. It's because of this thing right here, dude. This thing ruins so many wonderful moments of joy that a family should have around a pool. I mean, greatest moments I ever had was around a pool with my kids, my grandkids, so joy is wiped off the map when a child drowns, not only for that family, but in many cases, the community they live in.
And again, for someone like you who grew up around water, you probably weren't even thinking about this. When did it hit you? When did somebody come to you and ask for your help in getting the word out about this?
It was about 25 years ago. USA Swimming, the president of USA Swimming came to me and said, "We're starting a foundation, and I want to hire you to run it." And we were living in where were we living? Oh, Alabama, and moved to Colorado Springs to be there at the USOC headquarters, USOPC, and started this foundation and really started exploring and researching the drowning statistics. And the sad thing is they haven't gotten much better. A little bit. 70% of African-American children didn't know how to swim about 5 years ago. And then we just did a recent study, and now that figure has dropped to 64%. So we're making a little bit of strides, but it's still way too much, So, I'll never get to a day where no child drowns, obviously. But I think a lot of it's just education. We're just trying to tell parents, please, 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 please put your child in swim lessons and don't take your eyes off of them.
Well, doing a lot of good, and certainly around the swimming community. In your mind, where is the swimming community? Where is swimming right now from, when you were reading about it in that textbook in the library to where it is heading into LA in 2028?
Well, we've been the number one swimming country in the world since 1956. Think about that. That's 70 years, almost 70 years. No other country, no other sport can ever claim that kind of excellence in anything else, right? But the rest of the world is starting to catch up to us, and we cannot have that feeling of entitlement anymore. It's just not automatic that we're going to make the finals, and certainly not automatic that we're going to win gold medals. Were we the number one swimming country again this year? Yes. Are the numbers starting to dwindle? No doubt about it. So we have a lot of work cut out for us. But the good news is we've been number one for 7 years, and that tradition is going to stay alive and well the next 3 years. But we need to make great strides and help support our athletes both in and out of the water.
Well, we're excited about seeing your coverage of the Olympics again in LA in 2028. Until then, how can people follow you? Are you on social media?
I am. What am I? At Rowdy Gaines, I think. It's at Rowdy Gaines on Instagram and Twitter. I'm not very good on either one. And Facebook. I think I'm on Facebook too. Not very good at that, but I do. And my daughter actually runs my Instagram, and she does such a good job that NBC interviewed her at the Olympics last summer for running my Instagram. So she does a tremendous job, and it's still fun. But I do a lot of stuff with the Step in the Swim, social media stuff and stuff like that too. Travel quite a bit for that.
Well, Rowdy, this has been great again to see your career, hear your career from you, and again, looking forward to hearing you and Dan Hicks coming up in 2028. Should be a lot of fun, and we'll see. Maybe you'll be one of the torchbearers. Who knows? I think again, full circle. You got to be involved somehow. Maybe you're not the last man, but maybe you're along the way, the relay along the way.
Dude, I can name 50 above me right now. Maybe I'll start it in Nevada. That's what I'll do, and then start handing it off. No, there are a lot of great athletes that have come before and after me. So, but LA will be fun, man. It's gonna be an unbelievable Olympic Games. I can promise you that.
Well, best of luck. We'll be watching for sure.
Thank you, buddy. Take care. Let me know if you ever need anything.
Much thanks to Rowdy Gaines for joining us here today. Again, it's been a couple of years in the making with hurricanes disrupting things, but we certainly appreciate his time, having him share his story and also his message of Step Into Swim and what they're doing, again, to reduce drownings among young people and kids across the country. As always, we thank you for listening and watching and invite you to like, to subscribe, to share our show as we continue to improve and refresh and bring you some more great content, more great guests as well. We can only do that with your help. For JR Quitman, our creator, producer, and director behind the scenes, I'm Mike Vaccaro. We'll see you next time, another edition of In the Front Row. Have a great day, everybody.